Ah. As you know, this is the measure of an episode, where it is our continuing mission to explore what makes Star Trek genuine Star Trek and not just cashew butter slathered all on top of medjool date. My name is Paul.
My name is Jonathan, and we do this with 3 criteria. Sorry, I was not expecting a food reference. The first is...
It's not a reference. That is delicious. But it's not Star Trek.
Oh, interesting. The first is there sci-fi inherent to the plot?
The first what?
Sorry, we do this with 3 criteria. The first one is there sci-fi presented in a unique or novel fashion? Nope, sorry. The first one is there sci-fi inherent to the plot? It's required. You cannot do the story without the sci-fi. The second is that sci-fi presented in a unique or novel fashion? And the third is there an ethical or moral dilemma that any character might face? I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Paul. And this week, guess what we watched, Jonathan? You know already. You don't have to guess. It was Strange New Worlds.
Right? It's Picard episode.
Oh, wait a minute. This is going to be a really weird episode. Strange New Worlds, yeah. Season 2, Episode 4. Among the Lotus Eaters, which I'm sure is a reference, but I did not look up at all.
I got you.
Yeah. Oh, you did? Okay. Well, you can tell me about it, but I'll read the blurb.
That's like a blog, but you know, it's like a blurb.
It's on video.
Fashion, yeah.
Yeah. And the blurb is, returning to a planet stretches up tragic memories, Captain Pike, including their own identities as he confronts August. Doesn't seem right to me. Yeah, I think I know what happened. So in a rush, actually not in a rush, in a laziness, I dictated the blurb into my phone and did not check. I did not check to make sure it was correct, but this is apparently what Siri thought I said.
That's amazing.
I mean, it's close enough.
It's got the vague idea of what happened. There was something with Pike, memories, we got it.
August makes an appearance again.
What do you think you said for it to think, oh, that must be what it is?
I think it was a ghost or something. A ghost of his past.
Right. Okay.
Or something like that. I think I remember something like that from the blurb, that it was a ghost. Yeah. So, which I don't think tracks in the episode. I don't know any ghosts.
Right. Well, it's a ghost of his past. Like that tracks.
What was the ghost of his past?
The king of the palace, like his Zach. He was part of his. It was Yeoman Zach. It was part of his away mission.
Oh,
so
you mean the guy that we were just introduced to at the beginning of the episode?
Yes,
that was the
cool
the guy we didn't know about.
It was actually right. I mean, shows do this all the time. Like even Star Trek episode 4, 2. Or not episode.
Picard?
The movie, Star Trek 2, maybe.
Oh, Star Trek episode.
Sorry, the movies. The one with Sybok.
Yeah, that's 4.
Okay, yeah, where they just randomly introduced Spock's brother, who he never mentioned up to that point.
Right, Spock has a brother.
Well, right. So that's the funny thing about it. Like, Spock has a brother who was never mentioned up until Star Trek, the 4th movie. And people are like, yeah, Spock has a brother. It was mentioned in the 4th movie. Discovery introduced Spock's sister, and everybody's up in arms about how Spock had never mentioned a sister before that. So,
oh, wait a minute. No, I don't want to go into Star Trek jail. It was the 5th movie.
Okay.
It was the 5th movie. The 4th movie is like the most popular Star Trek movie of all time.
The whale one, right?
The whale one.
Yeah, I was like, maybe that was Star Trek 6, but yeah, okay. Because I knew it was an even one.
Yeah, no, it was. That was called...
Oh, right. Star Trek 2 is The Wrath of Khan. Right. Star Trek 3 is The Search for Spock.
That's right. And then Star Trek 4 is The Whale one. I think that's the subtitle.
Right. What's it called? Not The Undiscovered Country.
Returning Home.
Right. A Link to the Past. No Way Home.
End Game. I don't remember what it's called.
Oh my gosh.
What is it called?
Lost in San Francisco? Like...
I left my whale in San Francisco. What is it called?
Star Trek 6 is The Undiscovered Country.
I know that one.
Pretty sure.
That was good.
And then Star Trek 7 is Generations. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. So then 4 and 5. I'm really glad we're discussing
Five
this,
is
like the episode.
5 is the final frontier, and 4 is we're just gonna dance around 4 until the podcast ends.
Right? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, what is it called?
Wow.
Okay,
Right.
well, we'll think of it
Well,
later. We'll think of it later.
Yeah.
Let's keep going.
Anyway, so I mean, they do this kind of thing in shows all the time, where characters are introduced and people are like, "Wow, I haven't thought about you in years," and they become like integral to the plot that episode, and then never mentioned again. Uh, and so but what was neat about this is actually a deep cut from the original series Pike episode, The Cage, because they were talking about how they were coming from Rigel 7. Yeah, they were coming from Rigel 7, where they had a battle and they had lost some crewmen, and so in Strange New Worlds they had to go back to that planet. And even though like it was just kind of it mentioned in passing, it wasn't actually part of the episode, but this is them going back to the episode where that mentioning happened in the original series.
So what was the name of the original series? Is Lotus Eaters, is that from the original series as well? That just sounds like an original series title to me.
No, that's from I think the Odyssey. They if you ate the lotus, you forgot where you were from. You forgot the desire to go home.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Which, to totally jump ahead, like I personally really enjoyed this episode, and I do think it was proper Star Trek, but it like the one, it's not even a gripe, it's just it would have been neat if they had done this. I feel like it would have been fun if one of the away team lost their desire to go back. Like either La'an didn't get injured, but she just enjoyed the work that she was doing, and she was like, maybe I'm not supposed to remember. Like I don't have any sense of absence. I feel at peace here, or something.
Right. Yeah, I enjoyed it too. I thought it was great. I felt like I also have some gripes about it. I felt like it's one of those episodes that could have been several,
A two-parter?
yeah, several, like a whole season's worth of episodes, right?
Sure.
Because I felt like they built a world, a very interesting world, with these people who every day they forget what happened and they just wake up and they have to. It's almost a la Memento from the Christopher Nolan movie, where every 15 seconds or every 15 minutes or something like that, he has to reorient himself with information that has been written, that he himself has written or that other people have written. And they talk about that with the totem.
Or the Dana Carvey movie, Clean Slate.
Oh. Which I've never heard of. It sounds hilarious.
It's so good. It's so much better than Master of Disguise.
You don't even have to give me the title of the movie. Just say the Dana Carvey movie.
And you're like, done.
Yeah,
First row.
That's great. But I felt like that's one of my gripes, is that the mythology is so dilute because they had so little time to spend on it because they had to get the plot out of the way. And the one thing I like more than plot is mythology. And I know that mythology is not necessarily Star Trek, but in this case, it actually happened to be that way, where you have a culture that is forced to adapt to their situation, which is, hey, we forget what happened every time we go to bed, right?
Right.
Which is very interesting. What would happen to a planet of people, not just in this little microcosm of whatever this is? Like, I know that they kind of handle that a little bit in that there was a asteroid that hit and it kind of wiped things out. I'm not sure. They kind of brushed over it very quickly. But what was cool about it is that the idea is totally sound, and that what would happen to a culture if they forgot every time they fell asleep and they had to wake up and reorient themselves. So that's very interesting. And I felt like that would have been more interesting to me than them having to go, the MacGuffin of them having to go find their memories. I felt like that was a good MacGuffin for them to move the plot along, but I would have been perfectly fine following that old guy around, and learning about the culture if they had been marooned there and they immediately forgot. And then all of a sudden they have to figure out, kind of like the very racist original series episode where he becomes a Native American for an episode.
Oh yeah, the Paradise Syndrome. Yeah. Or the Haiti Syndrome.
The Haiti Syndrome. Well, it was the Paradise Syndrome, but it's not what it's called in the actual episode.
Yeah.
We have a whole episode on that, everybody. Go listen to it. But I felt like that was just that's a fun way to start the episode, right? Don't have to do it the way they did it, but this whole idea, and they do it in Voyager too, where they actually start the episode and we see the whole crew of Voyager on this very kind of industrial planet, and they obviously don't remember who they are. They obviously don't remember what they're doing or how long they've been there, and we slowly kind of see them. Like, I think somebody tries to rescue them or whatever, but this is not a new concept necessarily, but it's a very interesting one where the crew forgets who they are, and I liked it. I mean, I just wish there had been more time to focus on it, a little bit more, because it was so dilute. I felt like I was so malnourished with this concept that it could have been a little bit more fun, because I felt like there's a little too much emotion.
Right. Well, and yeah, to speak to your point, like this, maybe it's what Strange New World is doing, where every episode has to be its own thing, and they really don't want to do any two-parters or multi-episode arcs. But this would have been fun this would have been an easy way to get Anson Mount out of the show and just record just to record this episode and then have it more sprinkled into the other episodes where we just go back to him doing these things, and they've lost him somewhere. They didn't know what planet he was on, and they've over the episodes they find the trail of the shuttle and they lead it back to Rigel 7 or something.
Right. Yeah. That would have been fine. I mean, I guess he's kind of the draw of the show, so that would have been tough. It's not like they did that the first 2 episodes anyway. Right.
Well, right, but that's kind of my point. Like that, this way he would have been in the episodes, even though he wasn't part of the stories, and and it would have given a little bit more of an explanation rather than, I'm gonna go see this lawyer. Bye for the episode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree. But an example of what I mean by too much emotion is that there are times when this show leans on tropes or leans on cliches. So the whole beginning, the first 10 minutes of the episode is dedicated to Pike and his girlfriend and their strife, their emotional relationship strife. And I felt like there was nothing new, there was no new ground covered. There was no moment where I was like, what are they going to say next? Right. And so I was thinking, why not, instead of having this whole thing, by the way, so Pike is cooking at the beginning of this episode, right? And I think Pike only knows how to make pasta.
Right, he's making the tomato sauce. Right.
I think this is it. This is the only thing. He's got this huge kitchen that likely what he commissioned. Like when you move into the White House as president, you get to redecorate the White House. Yeah. He redecorated his captain's quarters upon gaining the commission to captain the Enterprise. And
what do you think? Do you think that when Kirk took over as captain, he walked in there and he was like, whoa, this is way too extravagant. I just need a bed and a room. We can get rid of all this.
Yeah, I just need some things hanging from the wall to separate the bedroom from the room with the chair. It is. I mean, he has a fireplace,
right?
I mean, we don't know if it's actually real fire or. I like that he is diligent enough to put out the candles on his dining room table, but leave the giant fire going.
Right. Yeah. So again, I mean, the same thing. Did he even have to blow out the candles? Do the sensors in the room recognize that there are no body heat signatures?
Oh, just when he leaves, it just sprays an inordinate amount of water onto the.
I was thinking sucking the air out, but sure. Walks back and just squishes.
It's always ruined
every time.
Yeah,
right.
Somebody always has to clean up after the fire retardant system on the Enterprise. No, they make it a thing. Almost every single episode, he's putting the candles out with his hand. So they've made it a thing now. So they have to have him. Okay. I mean, I'm guessing that the fire is not real. Because if he's putting out the candles because, this is dangerous. This small 1-inch fire, very dangerous.
All right.
Giant 15 square foot fire. Yeah. Right. That should be okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was I saying? Oh, so at the beginning, instead of having this 10-minute scenario with Captain Pike and his girlfriend, where they we get to know that they are having trouble because there's never any time, yada yada yada, right? We've heard it all before. We've seen
There
this
is
scene.
never enough
Yeah,
time.
exactly. Exactly. So why not just start the episode with her leaving, obviously upset? Like the first thing we see is the door to his quarters opening. She's leaving upset, almost in tears. He shows up with his chef's hat on and naked, you know. No, he's got his like apron on.
And that's it.
I mean, I understand you have to introduce the Mariner's key thing that plays a role, but find a way, right? Find a way to introduce that. Maybe he shows it to number one, Una, Una, and you know that whole exchange. We lose that whole 10-minute thing, right?
Right.
And so at that point, hey, we have 10 minutes now to spend on the surface as opposed to rehashing this thing. And by the way, when Una and Pike are talking about where she sees that he's upset, blah, 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 and they're talking about his girlfriend, whose name I cannot remember, right?
Right.
And she says, so you're doing the thing again where you're pushing people away the second it gets close, which is such a cliche. Like, I can't believe they said it. I can't believe they wrote it. It's like, how many times have we seen that ridiculous cliche? And I thought he was going to say, well, I kind of have a future in the next 10 or so years where my face gets melted off. And so I'm, a little hesitant to get into commitments. But he didn't say that, right? That to me was the go-to reason why he didn't want to get into an involved relationship. But they just pulled out the first, like the lowest hanging fruit possible when it comes to plot tropes to break up a couple to eventually get them back together again.
Right. Well, and I mean, I love what you're saying. Just cut that out, have her storm off, and then the conversation he has with Una, like, it treats the audience with way more respect and assumes that they are going to be smart enough to figure out, like, rather than showing it and then having them talk about it afterward. Like, if you just talk about it afterward, the audience is going to piece together, oh, there was a breakup.
Yeah, exactly. If you're going to have the conversation later, I cut one of them. You don't need both of them because we were there for it, right?
Right. I mean, I think he needs the moment with Una. He needs a moment away from her to kind of reflect on his life. And you're right. Like, he's like, what's the point of trying to build a long-term relationship if I don't have a long-term life?
By the way, that whole thing with the Mariner's key, where she gives it to him, there's got to be a better way to communicate the history of an object than explaining it directly to the person who obviously already knows what it is. Right?
Yes.
Right? I felt like
every time
there's got to be a way where you can either cover it, like she just gives it to him. He's like, wow, this is amazing. Thank you for giving it to me. And then they get interrupted or something like that. And I understand that you want to give it weight by spending a little bit of time on it. But as she goes off and takes her phone call, he can kind of look at it and like maybe take a magnifying glass and like, rub it on himself or something, like make sure that we know that he knows it's important.
Right. Yeah. Bite it. Make sure it isn't fake.
Yeah. And that would have been great. Does that make sure she's not looking to make sure it's like, oh, is this real? But that aside, I just felt like this whole intro was not up to the standard I felt like of the previous season, where they weren't doing these types of just cliches of relationships. Remember when I said last episode when La'an, was it last episode or the one before this, where the doctor is training her, like he's her sparring partner.
Okay.
I said, wouldn't it be great if he's a secret ninja?
Right.
He's apparently a secret ninja, because that's why. Tell me you didn't have that revelation when Pike said he needed the doctor for this mission. He's like, why do you need a doctor for this mission? And he's like, I need people who can handle themselves. He's like, oh, you need me because I'm a ninja.
Oh, it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah, I knew it was happening. I was like, I knew this was happening. But at least they seeded it, right? Mm-hmm. He's a ninja. Yeah. He's a secret ninja. He used to be a ninja. Ninja work dropped off. He became a doctor. Now he's trying to get away from his ninja life, but the captain keeps sucking him back in,
More study than pursue. Right.
Isn't that from the one where Jean-Claude Van Damme has like an evil twin? Not evil, but like they're twins, but they're totally different.
Oh my gosh. Until you said that, I completely forgot about
that. It's like
that.
double identity or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Double exposure. I don't know.
Anything works.
Right.
It's all translated from French anyway. Okay, enough of this. How do we get on Jean-Claude Van Damme again?
It's Double Impact.
Double Impact. So I get confused with Double Impact and Deep Impact.
Yeah, they're very similar.
Very
movies.
similar movies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Both have Morgan Freeman playing the president.
And he's Chad and Alex, not Dutch at all. I mean, maybe Chad backwards is kind of Dutch, but
but they go Dutch. That's the point.
Right.
What were we talking about? Oh yeah, Star Trek. Star Trek Episode 4. I still can't think of the title of the fourth one. I thought it would, it'd just come to me after not thinking about it.
The Voyage Home. Voyage Home.
It wasn't.
Oh my
Voyage
gosh.
Homecoming. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Like, I was like, the Home Discovery? No way. Like, yeah, there we go. Okay.
There is a Voyager episode called Homecoming, I think. So wouldn't it have been funny if, for some reason, they came across the crew from Voyage Home in Voyager Homecoming? And also Spider-Man is like in the background swinging around.
Just anything that has to do with Homecoming.
Okay, so they get to the surface of the planet, and La'an starts having her issues, right?
Like right away, yeah.
Yeah, where she gets her brain starts, she forgets something and she loses time. And they ask her, they say, "Are you okay? You seem weird. Like something's obviously wrong. Like we'd have to be idiots to believe you when you say, no, everything's fine. I just have a headache." And I felt like, why wouldn't she tell them? I mean, I understand when you're just a person and you don't want to get into that you're feeling bad or that it makes you feel uncomfortable, but they're on a very important mission right now, right? Mm-hmm. I would think that part of the protocol is no matter how uncomfortable it makes you, you need to explain to the rest of the crew that I'm having this issue. Hey, it might happen to you, or there's a reason it's happening. It's part of our own security that you tell me everything that is happening. So, especially with your health, this whole thing where she keeps it to herself because why? I hate, this is another low-hanging cliche that where something is wrong and obviously something is wrong, but she refuses to tell somebody about it. And it just, even as a security officer, she would know. Like this
and what's interesting about it is that they lose time over this. And like she is now in the middle of this snowy field or snowy mountain or whatever. And she's like, it's been 6 hours, and she's kind of thrown back by that. Like at what point do you say like, okay, yeah, guys, like something's wrong?
Immediately you say it. Like, like why am I burping up pizza?
Well, right. And that's the other part of it too. Like it wasn't that she was passed out during that time. Like she was functioning to the point where they didn't notice anything wrong with her. And so it's also like what's happening in that downtime. Like we hear the ringing in the ears and then suddenly they're waking up in a different place, but like are they absentmindedly wandering? Like why didn't anybody say anything before that? Lower Decks covered this amazingly well. I don't know if you saw that episode or not, but Rutherford, his enhancements kept rebooting, and we saw it from his perspective. And so, he would essentially black out and wake up in these unbelievable situations.
I think we saw that one. Did we see that one? I don't remember.
Right. I don't remember if we saw it or if I just watched it separately. Right. But yeah, like his body, like when his enhancements shut down, there was another part of him that took over and was like doing these amazing things.
Right. Yeah. It's cool. Like it would have been an interesting thing to see. Oh yeah. She's all bruised up or something, like they encountered some resistance and it's just something interesting happens. Like, oh, this is a problem. This is a big problem. What doesn't really line up though, is that it appears that the amnesia happens randomly. Just whatever your biology happens to be, that's when it happens to you, which doesn't line up with the the Kalar, and they seem to reset every night. So it's like they have a full day of memory, and then it resets. Mm-hmm. Maybe it normalizes over time or something like that. But it didn't. I mean, I know why this happened. I know why they wrote it this way, because they needed to show the crew showing symptoms without a day elapsing. So I know why they did it, but it just doesn't line up. Like it didn't make
Right.
sense.
But I mean, at the same time, it easily could have. It could have been there's a pulse that's happening from the meteorite, and that pulse is what's causing the brain wipes.
Yeah, maybe. Or you could say like soon your body will acclimate and only happens once a day, right?
Sure. Right.
Maybe or something
Yeah.
like that. They could have said that, but they didn't say that. They didn't do that.
But they didn't do that. Yeah. But the other part of that too is like how they went into the palace. Now that they're protected from it, like suddenly all of their memories come flooding back. You know, and it didn't matter how long they had been exposed to the radiation.
I mean, he did have to be in there for some period of time. He said, "Soon you've been in here long enough. Soon you'll start remembering." And so that did happen, but it was just sort of convenience.
Right. Right. Everything came flooding back. It wasn't that like he was starting to remember things. It was,
Right.
I am Captain Pike
They didn't
of
have
the
time.
Starship Enterprise.
Right. Yeah, I liked.
Which they would have.
I mean,
Did you say they didn't have time?
Yeah, they wouldn't have had time. Like they needed to have their confrontation. They couldn't have spent days in the thing where he slowly gets his memory back, where he's king all of a sudden. It'd be great if he becomes king.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know how I feel that the Kalar look exactly like humans. I
don't like it.
So here's the thing. I understand that there is very little difference between putting pointy ears on somebody and giving them a bowl haircut and humans, right? Not a lot of difference. Most of the aliens in Star Trek are just ridges on the brow, and all of a sudden they're this brand new alien that has developed separately from humans over eons of time. And I know this is handled in the Next Gen episode, but that's one of the more common complaints among Star Trek laymen, which is like, why do the aliens always look like humans? It's hilarious. It's stupid, But I always looked at that as a stand-in of, yes, we know that life would look much different if we were to encounter life from another planet, probably from another star system, whatever, galaxy.
Right. Yeah.
But it's a stand-in, right? Because we don't want to have to. It's not in the budget to develop a brand new weird-looking alien every single episode. So take it as metaphor, if you will. That's always how I decoded that and why they did it that way.
Okay.
I know I'm doing work.
I like that.
I'm doing work for them.
Yeah.
But that's what I tell people.
Right. But I don't think you're doing, like, you're kind of doing work for what the production value can't do. And it's not lazy, right? I mean, it is a little bit on like the Voyager side. There was, or like even on Enterprise, Dean Stockwell, he came on and he was like, I'm not going to sit in the chair for hours for makeup. And so they gave him like 3 Sharpie marks on the top of his head.
Yeah.
But I think I kind of like that justification of it. Like the production value doesn't have the ability to make things that are truly, genuinely alien. So they do a little bit more and a little bit less, and you just kind of have to recognize that this is almost like a representative of what the alien would look like, not, or of what of the alien that they're dealing with, not what the actual alien looks like if it was animated or given a budget.
Right. Yeah.
An unlimited budget.
Yeah. Just watch the show, right? It doesn't matter what they look like, right? Very rarely does their appearance play into it. Other than that, we know that they're they basically function as soccer jerseys.
Right. But when there's no makeup or so little that it's indistinguishable, like was kind of what happened with the Kalar,
I don't think there was anything different about them, was there?
Yeah. Not enough to have noticed. That's my point. Like if there was anything on them, it was not in a way that it was like, okay, yeah, these are aliens. We know they were aliens because they were dressed up in the warrior palace guard outfit. But also you're talking about the amnesia ones. So, right? Is that what you're talking about?
I thought they were all the same.
So after seeing the fortress guards in their helmets and then seeing the field workers and seeing how racially diverse they were, I was actually thinking that when they got their memories back, they would realize that they were also soldiers, and like they were either from the away team or they were other alien explorers from other alien races or other Star Trek ships or Starfleet ships. And that's kind of what I expected after seeing that diversity there.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. They didn't really go into it. Again, they don't go into it. I don't know. Again, if they'd had more time to cover the mythology, all these questions would have been answered. It would have been
Right.
nice. You know.
Well, and they could have had more time. Again, like they could have given themselves 10 minutes by cutting out the opening, or if they don't mind doing multi-episode arcs, then they could have had it sprinkled through.
Well, we do know that the Watch has not entered into the last 2 episodes, as far as I know.
Right? Oh, so true.
And there has been no mention of Lan's problems, or not. I guess not her problems, but her experiences.
Right, almost, yeah, PTSD. I did see a trailer for this season where it showed Kirk and La'an in Under the Sheets, so I do think it is going to play into a later episode. But we haven't seen anything about it yet.
Yeah, we'll see. So another low-hanging fruit cliche thing that they did was they've set up that the totem explains that all of their memories are in a casket inside the castle. We have to go get it. And the Kalar
right,
guy, who is their sort of their mentor / guide through all of this, he sets them up with all of the mythology and all the information, kind of the teller scene. And they're geared up. They're ready to go. They're going to go do it. We have all of the information that we need. And then right before the act out, Pike literally turns to the camera and says, "We're going to the palace to get our memories back."
Yep.
It was the same thing as in Spaceballs, where the Colonel Sanders is telling Darth Helmet, and then Darth Helmet turns the camera and says, "Everybody got that?" It's the same thing. It was like one of those things like, you don't need that. Why do you keep doing that? Like, it's so insulting, Jonathan. Like, especially because they had just said there are memories in our casket. We're going to have to go to in a casket in the palace. We're going to have to go in there and get them.
Right.
And then he turns and just reorganizes the words in the same sentence he just said and says it to the camera.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Right. Star Trek is, at least in my mind, is supposed to be a show that you're not being spoon-fed. You're not being pandered to, or at least in a way that is so eye-rollingly obvious. Even when they are pandering to us by saying some kind of, or so it's like they're
right. That's because they're concepts that don't exist in real life, right? Like we need some context for those to understand what they're going to do.
Well, that, and it's the edge of science, and maybe just like a logical stretch, but still not something we can do. But for that to be explained, you're using the scientific terminology, and then you're using a layman analogy. And this is not. This is, this is a trope action scene moment where he's saying, we're getting in that castle.
Right. Yeah. They didn't even say it like that in a Pike kind of way, right? Pike seems to lose his personality a little bit when he loses his memory. Yeah, it would have been interesting if he kind of kept his casual swagger, even not knowing who he was. Like when Kirk turned into a Native American, he was still Kirk. Yeah,
and then some. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it would have been nice if he had gone just in a completely different direction, and really played up like how gruff he was. The fact that he was like taking out soldiers and guards all over the place.
Okay, so I had a revelation. So I did like this whole section with I can never remember the helmsman's name, Ortegas, where she forgets everything, and she kind of uses the computer to help her along, right? Kind of find her identity a little bit. I almost got a little bit of like Geordi vibes, because you know how Geordi likes to use the computer professionally and personally. And that I felt like she was going to be clever with the computer in asking questions, having the computer help her plot a course, you kind of using Siri to drive your car type of thing, that kind of thing. It would have been cool to see how she could cleverly get through the crisis without knowing
Mm-hmm.
how to drive the ship, because all of a sudden she knew how to drive the ship. She was totally disoriented when she comes to in her amnesia and doesn't even know what's sitting in front of her. But then all of a sudden she can drive the ship because she's riled up and ready to go. I felt like, why not let her use regular language to talk to the computer? That would have been a fun exchange. That would have been a very interesting way to solve the problem, as opposed to what ended up just being her muscling through the amnesia,
Right.
which doesn't typically work very well with amnesia.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they did talk about how like there is muscle memory and emotions and that sort of thing, but I still, yeah, like her sitting down at the console and suddenly she's like, "Oh yeah, this is how you fly fly a ship by sliding your hand across the screen in this manner."
And frankly, you wouldn't need a helmsman anyway. You wouldn't need anybody to drive the ship because they probably can drive themselves pretty well, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
I've said this before, maybe once or twice, that shouldn't be driving. Should not have humans in charge driving gigantic ships that are the size of states.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah. So when she's going back, she's going to her quarters, right? And she goes into the turbo lift. And in the original series, they have those handles that you have to hold on to like make it work. I don't really know exactly why that's a thing, but it's a thing. Got to hold on to it, or it won't work. She doesn't hold the handles, and it works fine.
Right.
What's going on? Like, is it just optional? Like, just so it doesn't, like, if it speeds up all of a sudden, it doesn't, you don't get thrown to the floor.
Right, yeah. This is the first time that I've seen that, because they even did it in DS9,
Yeah, they're
where
holding on.
yeah, yeah. And so I don't know. I don't know if that was an oversight on the director's part or if they were like, we're just gonna have to forego that continuity part of it and just have her be lost in the elevator.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it felt like Picard, where the whole wharf problem we were having,
Mm-hmm.
or that I was having, and the thing that pissed everybody off
Right.
on social media.
Yeah, I'm with you.
It kind of reeked of that, in that they had people writing who weren't super Star Trek literate, and they didn't know, like, all of the set design. Those guys did their homework, right? They knew
Mm-hmm.
that you needed the handles. They know all the cool inside stuff, all the inside baseball stuff about Star Trek. The writers just didn't lean into that, or something happened on set, and maybe it was in the script, and they just forgot to do it.
Right,
You
or
just
yeah, or maybe the gal who plays Erica, like, just in the moment didn't remember that that was something she had to do, and the director totally missed it, or the script supervisor, missed it.
right, because my
Yeah.
my solution would be, if you in the script, it's just easy. It's like, please, the computer says, please hold the handle to make the turbo lift operate. She just does it. Oh, okay, and then it goes. Right. That's all you have to do.
Right.
Okay. One more thing.
Okay.
I have a question. I have questions. So the doctor and La'an, at the end of this thing, like, they're all back to normal. Everything is cool, and the doctor does this, like, under the eye move
The
with his
tear thing?
hand. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was like, what is that? Like,
Mm-hmm.
where did that come from? Did I miss something from something? Is that a ninja move?
I assumed
They're both ninjas.
well, right, that's kind of what I assumed, that it was like they were part of some kind of covert mission previously, and like this is them looking out for each other, and that was just the signal that they gave to each other. Like, I did not think that it was like, I'll cry for you when you die, and she's like, I'll cry for you.
Yeah, she just did it back to him because she
She
thought it
has no
looked cool.
idea.
Yeah.
Oh, is this a doctor thing?
No, my head's fine. Thank you.
Right. Or she's like, do I have something underneath my
Yeah.
brain?
Wrong side. Oh, sorry, wrong side. This side.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe that's coming. I don't know. Second time with the doctor. First, we learn he's a secret ninja. I guess they're both ninja things, because it's obviously a ninja thing.
Right. Well, yeah. And audience, if you know, like, please share with us. Either message us, or you can email us at TheMeasureOfAnEpisode@gmail.com, or you can message us on Facebook. You can make any comments under the links of these episodes. So, yeah, just if you know why they did the tier thing, the tier wipe, please
I want to know. Yeah, send me an email because I would like to know exactly why that was. It feels like they're setting something up. Maybe
Right.
it's related to the watch.
Maybe. I don't know why the Doctor would have done it first, though.
Maybe that's Kirk. Maybe he's Kirk.
So many possibilities.
So many possibilities.
All right. So, do you have any more?
No.
Okay. So at the start of this episode, it sounded like you were saying this isn't a proper Star Trek episode.
Yeah, I'm trying to come on what's the moral dilemma that somebody faces.
The totem guy, like he was kind of saying, like, isn't it better to have the memory of the person rather than the pain that of the loss?
That's true. That's good. That is good. It's not really a dilemma. He's kind of, that choice is being made for him. But I guess, and did he make the choice to come into the castle? And
yeah, I mean, again, same thing. Like they didn't really show it, but Pike did say, like you did choose to come in, and he was like,
Right.
"Thank you so much." It did. Like it is better to know or whatever.
Yeah, it's a good moment. So regardless if it actually is a dilemma, I like that it's a philosophy thing, right? They're trying to say something. So I did like that. So I think you're right. You're right. I think this is a Star Trek episode. Or a proper Star Trek episode. I think it works.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
it was a little dilute.
Yes.
It was a little dilute. I mean, I feel like there's an asterisk in there somewhere, but we'll let it slide by.
Yeah. Sure.
It's like when your luggage is like 51 pounds.
Right. They're like, we won't tell.
They'll probably let it slide.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Or it depends on how nice you're being.
So it never works for me. Never works.
You're too nice.
Yeah.
Right. They're like, we just want to spend so much time with you. I'm sorry, it's 51 pounds. Well, would you take your foot off? I don't know what you're talking about.
It's like, no, I know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm making this difficult for you. Right. Okay, well, I guess that's it. So what are we watching next week?
We're going back to Picard, episode 5. Yeah, episode 5.
Get to finally see how Worf is Worf and not Picard Worf.
Maybe, maybe this is the hill you're gonna die on. Dig your feet in and be like, no.
Well, all of the comments on that one little minute-long video are like, I disagree with you 100%. You didn't see the whole show. Like, kind of, what's it called when you ask a question that you don't want an answer to? Rhetorically. When you rhetorically say, oh, what, you didn't see the whole show, this and this happens. Like thinking that we actually did see the show, they just disagree with us. No, right. We haven't seen the whole show. No, that hasn't happened.
To be fair, I went back and played it, and nowhere in that do we say like we were just watching episode 3 or like in this moment of Picard. Like it definitely gives the impression that we are that we're reviewing Picard.
I feel like the audio does, but in our defense,
yes,
the clips that we use are only from that episode.
Right.
So, yeah, we win.
So we're technically right, which is the best kind of right.
The one that everybody always likes when someone brings it up.
Everyone goes, "Oh, you're technically right." Yeah, that's fair then.
Yeah. I concede. Yeah. Okay. Well, I've been Paul.
I've been Jonathan.
And this has been The Measure of an Episode, hasn't it?
But you already knew that.
Is that Picard or Janeway?